Cheers, everyone. Dave Brown back here with the New Populist. Thank you again for joining me. Well, it finally happened. The president of China, Xi Jinping, came to the United States to meet with Joe Biden in San Francisco. And these leaders have not met with each other for a very long time because of friction between our two countries. And being the leaders of the two most powerful countries in the world, it of course is not a good thing if they are not communicating. So thankfully, they did get together in San Francisco. But before I get into their meeting, I have to point out, and this is from the domestic side of politics, San Francisco. If you've ever been to San Francisco, it's a beautiful city. But unfortunately, they do have a problem with homeless encampments in the city, people doing drugs, people with mental issues on the streets. And this has been a problem for a very long time. And it's dangerous for women and children walking, and it also hurts small businesses because you will have a homeless encampment in front of a business. And as you can imagine, somebody might not want to walk in that business if they have to walk past the crazy guy who might do whatever. So San Francisco has this huge problem, but before the visit by Xi Jinping, they magically managed to clean up the entire city. And there's all these before and after photos showing what was there before, these tents, and afterwards, they're all cleaned up. And this goes to show you that our government, our politicians, are capable of cleaning up our streets, but they choose not to. And that is absolutely ridiculous. They could make our streets safer and cleaner, but they don't. They choose not to. But when Xi Jinping arrives from China, they want to make everything look good to impress him. And they have no problems then rounding up all the homeless, all the drug addicts, and clearing them away. It would be nice if our politicians cared about us as much as they cared about foreign dignitaries. So really sad from the domestic side that our politicians are that lazy, that spiteful of the people that they're supposed to serve. Now, to the meeting. We had a readout from the U.S. government, and it said this. The two leaders welcomed the resumption of high-level military-to-military communication, as well as the U.S.-China Defense Policy Coordination Talks and the U.S.-China Military Maritime Consultative Agreement meetings. Both sides are also resuming telephone conversations between theater commanders. Now, this is actually a big thing here because for the longest time, the head of the U.S. Defense Department, our Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, has not spoken to his counterpart, the defense minister in China. And why is this? Well, I've discussed this in previous videos. Back in, I think, 2018 or 2019, the U.S. Congress passed the Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act, which puts sanctions on individuals who buy certain military equipment from people we deem to be our enemies. So the defense minister of China, Li Shangfu, he was involved in purchasing certain Russian military equipment, and so we put him under sanctions. And for that reason, the Chinese refused to talk to us. They said, before our guy will talk to your guy, you have to remove these sanctions. But we refused. We would not remove the sanctions. But last month, however, Li Shangfu was removed as defense minister. Why was he removed? There's only speculation. Is it related to this visit? Were they trying to find a way to put somebody in there that didn't have sanctions on him so they could talk to the U.S.? I don't really think so, but it is interesting timing that he's removed, and then we have this meeting, and now we're resuming communication between our top military guys. So interesting development, and of course, having our militaries talk to each other is very important to make sure there aren't any misunderstandings. Now, on the issue of Taiwan, it says here, on Taiwan, President Biden emphasized that our one China policy has not changed and has been consistent across decades and administrations. He reiterated that the United States opposes any unilateral changes to the status quo from either side, that we expect cross-strait differences to be resolved by peaceful means, and that the world has an interest in peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait. He called for restraint in the PRC's use of military activity in and around the Taiwan Strait. Now, we play this game here, right, where we say we recognize the one China policy, meaning that Taiwan is part of China. It's not independent. But we do everything to aggravate this situation. We encourage Taiwan to move away from China. We give them weapons. And we just constantly poke at it. We're trying to provoke the Chinese because Taiwan has great strategic importance. But officially, we're supposed to recognize that Taiwan is part of China. So anyone who says, well, China has no right over there, well, our own government says that it's part of China. So interesting, our stated policies versus how we actually behave. I wish they would align. I wish we would actually follow it ourselves. And of course, we can claim too that China does their own things aggressively to inflame the situation. And I think that's true. I think both sides play into this. And I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon because, again, Taiwan has great strategic importance. Container traffic moves through there, microchips. So this will continue, unfortunately, to be an issue going forward between the two nations. Now, what I found interesting was the actual comments from President Xi Jinping, his remarks he made when he was with Biden. And here's what he said. Mr. President, good morning. Coming here, I think of your trip to China when I was the vice president of China. We had a meeting. It was 12 years ago. I still remember our interactions very vividly. And it always gives me a lot of thoughts. And I can guarantee you Biden has no recollection. Last time we met in Bali, you said it was a year and a day ago. A lot has happened since. The world has emerged from the COVID-19 pandemic, but it's still under its tremendous impacts. The global economy is recovering, but its momentum remains sluggish. Industrial and supply chains are still under the threat of interruption, and protectionism is rising. All these are grave problems. The China-U.S. relationship, which is the most important bilateral relationship in the world, should be perceived and envisioned in a broad context of the accelerating global transformations unseen in a century. It should develop in a way that benefits our two peoples and fulfills our responsibility for human progress. China-U.S. relationship has never been smooth sailing over the past 50 years and more, and it always faces problems of one kind or another. Yet, it has kept moving forward amid twists and turns. For two large countries like China and the United States, turning their back on each other is not an option. it is unrealistic for one side to remodel the other, and conflict and confrontation has unbearable consequences for both sides. Now, what I thought was interesting is the part where he says it is unrealistic for one side to remodel the other. What is he saying? Well, the United States divides up the world into two different camps. Liberal democracies that we say are good, and the illiberal democracies, which are evil and bad, and that we work to overturn and change into something, well, more pliable for us. And what Xi is saying is that it is unrealistic for either side to remodel the other country, to transform them. So stop trying to do it. The Chinese have, for example, banned the Open Society, which is run by George Soros. And of course, the Open Society operates in countries to fund domestic groups that oppose the government. This is part of the color revolution process. And of course, the CIA works with NGOs, non-governmental organizations, to help this process. That's what happened in Ukraine, and that's what has happened in Georgia to an extent. And China is saying, not going to happen here. Don't try to remodel us. We're not going to try to change you either. Leave it alone, and we have to get along. And he continues, I am still of the view that major country competition is not the prevailing trend of current times and cannot solve the problems facing China and the United States or the world at large. Planet Earth is big enough for the two countries to succeed, and one country's success is an opportunity for the other. And one thing I've always said about the neocons in the United States is that they look at foreign policy as a zero-sum game, meaning that if China does well, that's bad for America. So we have to contain China economically, contain China militarily. That is their outlook, and Xi is saying, hey, there's enough for everyone here. A rising tide raises all boats, and one country's success is an opportunity for the other country. Why can't we work together for mutual benefit? Well, unfortunately, again, we have the neoconservatives in the United States who do not take that view. They view China as an illiberal democracy that must be contained and, if possible, destroyed. And if we look at Russia, they've admitted that they've wanted to collapse Russia, get rid of Putin, and actually fracture Russia into several smaller countries. Because if that happens, or if that were to happen, they would be much easier for us to control. And I don't think they would have a plan to try to break up China, but certainly they will like a more docile China that we could control. He continues, it is an objective fact that China and the United States are different in history, culture, social system, and development paths. However, as long as they respect each other, coexist in peace, and pursue win-win cooperation, they will be fully capable of rising above differences and finding the right way for the two major countries to get along with each other. I firmly believe in the promising future of the bilateral relationship. And that's important. The fact that China is a very different country in its development, its culture, social system, and they're not us, and we are not them. We're going to be different. But if you have mutual respect, you can coexist, and that's what I want. I have a lot of criticism of China, just like I do of my own country. But I look at the bigger picture going, we can't have this competition between our countries get out of control. The earth, will blow the whole thing up if we don't contain ourselves and try to coexist peacefully. So for me, peace is not an option. We have to strive toward that. But we do, again, have these maniacs in Washington, D.C., the neocons, who never stop in their quest for shaping the world and creating a globalist system based in Western Europe and the United States that they control. And China and Russia are obstacles to that system that they envision. Their what they call it, their rules-based international order. Russia and China don't cooperate, and that annoys them greatly, which is why we have so much hostility. Now, when Tony Blinken, the Secretary of State, went to China back in June, when he got back and he went around saying, "Hey, we've made some progress. We're finding some common ground." President Biden went to a fundraiser and he called Xi a dictator, which pissed off the Chinese and kind of undid some of the good that Blinken had done. And the embassy responded by saying this: with the latest irresponsible remarks about China's political system and its top leader, people cannot help but question the sincerity of the U.S. side, the embassy said in a statement. The Chinese government and people do not accept any political provocation against China's top leader and will resolutely respond to that. Chinese Ambassador Xi Feng had previously told senior U.S. officials on Wednesday that they should take earnest actions to undo the negative impact of what Biden said or bear all the consequences. The ambassador's message was unclear as to whether Beijing was seeking an apology from the Biden administration or what the consequences would be. So Blinken trying to make things better and Biden hurting them. Well, unfortunately, something similar happened after these recent talks. And here's a video of Biden once again calling Xi a dictator, and watch the response from Secretary of State Antony Blinken. It is actually quite amusing.
And Mr. President, after today, would you still refer to President Xi as a dictator? This is a term that you used earlier this year.
Well, look, he is. I mean, he's a dictator in the sense that he's a really guy who runs the country.
He's so uncomfortable.
Well, look, he is. I mean, he's a dictator in the sense that he's a really guy who runs the country.
I'm not a big fan of Antony Blinken, but I do feel sorry for him there. He's trying hard to work with China, and every time he does something, he has this geriatric president come in there and just make things worse. And China, of course, had a response. I'll read over it. It's in Chinese. This kind of statement is extremely incorrect and irresponsible political, political manipulation, which China resolutely opposes. It needs to be pointed out that there has always been people with ill intentions who try to sow discord and undermine China-U.S. relations. So that was their response, I guess. Biden is one of those people who was trying to sow discord, in China-U.S. relations. But hopefully the Chinese realize, like a lot of us do, that Biden is not all there, and he cannot be relied upon to follow the script 100%, and he occasionally wanders off and causes his Secretary of State to have a heart attack. But one last thing on that, the media does like to bait our politicians into calling people like Putin and Xi dictators, killers, evil, because they reflect the attitude of the neocon foreign policy establishment in the United States. So with Trump, he had an interview with Sean Hannity, and they made a big deal of the fact that Trump refused to call Putin evil, and that was a big deal. And there's a reason why Trump doesn't do it, and there's a reason why Biden should probably not do it either, calling Xi a dictator. It's not that you can make the argument that he is a dictator. Sure, go ahead. But as a head of state trying to deal with another head of state, you have to put that aside and just focus on the issue of relations and working together. And the only real reason why, again, they want to force Biden or Trump to go after Putin and Xi in unfriendly terms, again, is a reflection of the foreign policy establishment that wants to keep these countries cast in a negative light and really push the idea that they need to be contained or destroyed. And the minute you start dealing with these leaders respectfully and have better relations, that undermines the military-industrial complex and the foreign policy establishment's efforts to create and maintain the hostility that they want in order for them to pursue their crazy neocon plan. So that's why the media, and of course people in the media are a lot of times surrogates for the Intel State and for the MIC. So they keep pushing them to ask questions of Biden, Trump, or anybody else that forces them to call other leaders bad names in order to, again, maintain that hostile position. So Trump is smart and he avoids it. Biden, well, who knows what's going on Biden? Not a whole lot upstairs. So, well, that is it for now. If you are new to my channel, please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.